And, Kawhi, speaking of him, he's a good example of the best player to play for a franchise versus that franchise's best player. And you can still make an argument for a guy like Vince Carter, but there's also a very good case for Kawhi Leonard being the best player to suit up and wear a Raptors uniform. But I see the franchise's best player? Absolutely not. Because a guy like Vince Carter, he put Toronto on the map. And guys like Kyle Lowry, even DeMar DeRozan, they were there for a long time. And they didn't win any rings, but they put that city on their back. And so that's the difference kind of between a franchise best player and the best player to suit up for that franchise. And I think another case of that is Dwyane Wade versus LeBron James for the Miami Heat, because Dwyane Wade is the best Miami Heat player of all time, but LeBron is the best player to play for the Miami Heat. But the reason I want to talk about Dwyane Wade right now is because he's going to get his statue for the Miami Heat on October 27th. And I'll go more in depth about him then, kind of talk about his legacy all time. I think D Wade gets underrated all time because the shooting guard position is just so stacked. You've got a top 2 player of all time in Michael Jordan. You've got Kobe Bryant, who isn't that far behind him. And there's just so much talent at the shooting guard position that a guy like D Wade, even though he's definitively top 5, I would argue top 3, he kind of gets lost in that conversation because there's so much talent at that position in terms of best shooting guards of all time. But D Wade, he's up there with all of them. He really can compete with the best of them in his prime, and he's a Miami Heat legend. He deserves that statue. It'll be great to see. If you enjoyed this video, it would be great if you could find it in you to like, subscribe, maybe check out the full podcast on Spotify. Follow us on there. Follow us on Instagram. I know realistically this podcast isn't going to go anywhere ultimately, whether it's via the segments on YouTube or the entire podcast itself. But I want to get into the sports broadcasting business. I want to be able to promote thought-provoking discussions about the NBA, and I would love to do it via State of the Association. Thank you if you made it all the way through.